We have two experts here with us to discuss the evolving situation. Dan Perry is an Israeli affairs analyst, the former regional editor of the Associated Press in the Middle East, and Tamer Qarmout, associate professor of public policy at the Doha Institute for Graduate Studies. Dan will be with you in just a moment to talk more about what's happening in Israel. But Tamer, if we can begin with where things stand in Gaza and any hope for an end to the hostilities, Netanyahu saying that he'll only negotiate with Hamas under fire now. Does he want to negotiate with them at all, do you think?
He wants until he gets to release the Israeli captives, and then again back to point zero. I mean, he's only focused on releasing the captives, but he's still committed to achieving the goals, which is the main goals: eradicating Hamas and getting it out of the Gaza Strip. So I believe that Israelis and Americans are still committed to the same goals. There have been no change, a drastic change in their political stand. Although we have seen some political maneuvering, political initiatives, diplomacy, mainly focus or coming from Arab countries who want to see an end of this conflict. But so far, the Israelis are really not paying any attention or disregarding, in fact, these proposals.
The reinstating of Itamar Ben-Gvir, what does that tell us about the calculations that Netanyahu is making? How much is he being driven by domestic politics, and how much is he being driven by wanting to, as we were hearing from Tamer, eliminate Hamas? That is also part of the domestic political calculation, of course, but there doesn't seem to be any external pressure on Netanyahu at the moment.
That's correct. I mean, there are a number of things happening here. First of all, the government was never comfortable with the deal that implicitly enabled Hamas to remain in power, and they would have said that that was essentially signed under duress, under pressure from Trump. Now, the second thing is that same Trump is now allowing them to walk away from the deal because that's just the way he rolls. And with Trump, a deal is never a deal, but an opening position in the next negotiation going back to the 70s when he was a real estate developer. Third, there really is a political problem for Netanyahu. I mean, he has to pass a state budget by March 31st, so the government automatically falls. For that, he needs the solid support, and he gets that with Itamar Ben-Gvir rejoining the coalition. Fourth, in general, there is a lot of suspicion in Israel that Netanyahu is motivated by his need to continue the conflict because that enables him to stall on the establishment of an inquiry commission that about 80% of the people are demanding into the debacle and failures of October 7th. Look, Netanyahu is obsessed with staying in power. The deal, if fully implemented, would have desperately endangered his coalition, even beyond the budget issue. And the return of Itamar Ben-Gvir strongly suggests that he's doubling down on the current direction of things, which is to resume.
Well, Tamer, what can change the situation then, other than U.S. pressure, and what can lead to that U.S. pressure? Can the Arab leaders that came up with a counter-proposal, and especially Saudi Arabia, who Donald Trump wants to have a very good relationship with, what can they do now?
So, Elizabeth, I mean, the U.S. has vast interests in this region, and it also has key allies besides Israel as well. I think Trump is keen to achieve some progress on normalization deals between Saudi Arabia and Israel. The Saudis have been very clear from the onset that they will not go this path until they see a commitment in return, or a commitment to a political path to create a Palestinian state. Trump is coming to visit this month. There are some business deals, and he also, I'm pretty much sure that they will discuss also the Arab proposal, because Saudi is a key holder for this proposal. So I would be surprised if he comes with empty hands.
Dan, do you think that Netanyahu does have an end game? And when Tamer talks about how, you know, until this window of opportunity that Saudi Arabia, that Arab countries might present, what is Netanyahu planning to do with the free reign he seems to have until we see that pressure from Arab countries?
I think Netanyahu is obsessed with staying in power, but he's also pragmatic, and currently his political landscape tells him he has to continue the war. It's not, however, simply for that. There is support in Israel for eliminating Hamas in Gaza. I believe there's great support among the Palestinians for that. It's just that the war has failed to achieve it. And the reason why Israelis basically support an end to the war is because they notice that Netanyahu himself does not appear to be actually engineering a day-after plan without Hamas, because the same far right that prevents the implementation of the deal is also preventing a discussion of that, because the only plausible outcome is some alternate Palestinian leadership, and they would instead want permanent Israeli occupation. So Netanyahu, given his current coalition, is very much hamstrung. However, if the regional and international landscape changes, then that calculus could change as well.
Arab leaders have said that they are working on a plan for Hamas to step aside, for another Palestinian entity to take over. But just quickly, Dan, is there any Palestinian entity that would be acceptable to this Israeli government? They don't want Hamas, they don't want the Palestinian Authority either.
I think the Palestinian Authority, rejuvenated, revamped, working hand in hand with the Emiratis and the Qataris and the Saudis and the Egyptians, would be very hard for the government, for Israel to refuse. The pressure from the street would be overpowering. I kind of agree that the current government is not a partner for anything in Israel, but it would compel Netanyahu to realign, and the Israeli opposition would support it, and they would make clear that they would support it, and that would create a different environment. But for this to happen, the Arab countries have to go a little bit beyond the existing Egyptian plan, which is a step in the right direction. I think they simply have to tell Hamas, the game is over, you have no legitimacy, you'll have no funding, you'll have no escape unless you take the deal that's on the table with exile for your leadership and a disarming of the militia. You have to do this, otherwise the blockade continues. Who knows, the war may continue, but the alternative, the Palestinians, is extremely promising because of all the aid, because of all the assistance, and because of the forcing, the compelling of a political change in Israel.
I think letting go of arms will only come if there is a clear path for a Palestinian state that could be disarmed, no problem. Palestinians can take the justice proposal, but it has to come with a commitment from the Israelis that they will not reject such thing, allowing a Palestinian state to be established. And I think without this commitment, without the political vision to end this conflict, it will be hard to ask any party to let down of weapons. It's just hard, because this is a resistance movement for people, for a nation under occupation. And that's something Israel has to realize as well.
Tamer, Qarmout and Dan Perry, thank you both very much for your analysis. We appreciate it. Thank you.